Next, we're going to be finishing You Will Be Angry, a Werewolf the Apocalypse lore dump from Burgerkrieg. I've seen a bit of this, and we got some interesting factions, which are incredibly relevant for anyone who also, like me, may or may not be geeking out over Hunter the Parenting constantly. You know, most normal people. Yeah, let's go with normal. That's a word that I would definitely use for this. It's awesome. I'm going to love it, and I'm going to find just how weird this gets, because if there's one thing he has made me aware, it's that everything to do with Werewolf the Apocalypse is overinflated insanity, and I kind of love it. It's simple people in explicitly not simple areas who oversimplify the situation, which is why they have issues, but then also are not complicated, but then they really are. This is a horrible description. Basically, werewolves are the hammer and everything looks like a nail in a world where there are literally no nails left. And it kind of goes bad because of it. I'm oversimplifying, but it kind of works. Let's go see what happens.
The silent striders are the ultimate nomads, vagabonds and wanderers on and off the beaten path.
Ooh.
They rarely stay in one place for long and have naturally evolved to be the messengers of the Garu world, bringing news, secrets, and important goods from place to place.
Oh, so they bring stuff and they have interesting information, which might be more valuable. What kind of information would the Garu value as secrets?
They have a knack for picking up stuff here that someone over there is going to need. And whenever a silent strider arrives, everyone hopes that they have brought that thing for them somehow.
So they're not just the messengers. They're basically hyper Amazon. That works. Wow. Garu Amazon. And Rose, one, thank you very much, too. It will be a while before you could do hard dungeon, sadly, because you can only get that after Canto 7. Next, MD, you will need to beat as Canto 8. Ah. Might be a while before I get hard mode mirror dungeon then. On the other hand, I'm literally at battle pass rank, I think 102 or 105. Yeah. Bill Larson, the Deus Ex Machina? Oh, because the Silent Striders are probably used in a lot of campaigns as the plot-inducing characters or the ones who can move it forward, because suddenly the thing you need has arrived and now plot can happen. Yeah, that makes sense. Or if you're going to a villain campaign, the people you robbed to get said plot thing, which still is the same thing, but very interesting target.
They don't always cross continents either. They may well be content learning every facet of the tri-state area, or have a hideout in every major city in a small country in Europe.
See, that actually is fascinating, because if you're using that, it doesn't mean they're pigeonholed to big things. It could be explicitly the guy who knows the one piece of information about this one local sect that you're looking for information on. It doesn't have to be big, sweeping secrets. It could be, yes, they have it, but the one you're looking for has this specific information at a lower level, and he can't give away spoilers for things I might not want to tell you yet. Nice. They're literally the MacGuffin holders.
Naturally, they are excellent diplomats, learning not just various cultural customs, but also a basic sense for picking up on those customs and displaying proper etiquette, even when they don't know what exactly is going on.
Oh. Wait. There's werewolves. There's Garu, who explicitly are good at etiquette? That is not what I was expecting. I thought they may be more sneaky, but no, they're just really good at people pleasing and schmoozing. Maybe not pleasing, but just fitting in. Okay. It'd be really fun to play as one of them, just because it would be like all charisma rolls.
Travels also don't limit themselves to the physical world.
What?
Few know how to delve the depths and long distances of the Umbra like the Silent Striders do. There are paths in there that lead through some weird-ass places, and understanding how to navigate those is a valuable skill indeed.
In other words, if you want to play a really weird campaign getting into the Umbra, you need one of these guys to justify why you can do the shit you're doing. Oh, dude.
Of course, the attitude of being sort of a nosy tourist who wants to learn all of a place's most intimate secrets, only to then move on and spread those secrets.
They're probably targets then.
It kind of rubs some people the wrong way. They don't really like it. Silent Striders also have a knack for changing things up with the things that they bring, then not being around to clean up the mess.
I just realized what these guys are. Earlier I said Amazon. I'm very wrong. These are delivery people from Fallout New Vegas. Delivery? It's a 4-iron.
And then there's also the
iron?
matter
Whatever.
of the curse that a nameless spirit allegedly placed on them, the details of which
there's a
are
curse?
not entirely clear, and that's kind of spooky, right?
Oh, so they're cursed, which gives the DM a lot of leeway if you want to play with them to screw around with you without realizing, or to get rid of one you have in a campaign for MacGuffins. Okay.
Patron spirit is owl, not so much a traveling spirit in and
Wisdom?
of itself, but certainly one of observation and knowledge.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Deliberation before rash action. It favors moving to the right place when the time is right, but bans not performing proper burial rites when you witness someone dying. That may sound a little odd, a little bit, out of left field, but it's something old does to protect the silent striders from the unknown death curse. And the old law actually tells
Oh, so it's not just a curse, it's a death curse. What does that entail within World of Darkness? Because this is the first time that specific phrasing has been brought up. I only know of death curses in the Jim Butcher, Harry Dresden Files series, where it's, I'm gonna fuck you up and it'll cost me my life, but it's worth it because fuck you. Maybe. But this one seems to be a curse tied more to death around them. So probably not the same.
Tells us more about that. The curse was cast by none other than Set, the antediluvian creator of the followers of Set, nowadays known as the Ministry in Vampire the Masquerade.
Oh. Okay, so once Set was an antediluvian, and Vampire is explicitly getting into a faction of the Garu. Which is weird because I've been theorizing and thinking how you can use the Garu in various other settings. This is the first time one of the other settings is explicitly in Vampire. Kind of like how the Tremere faction, Vampire Wizards, are explicitly involving the Mage faction for their existence. Huh. Ooh, also, let's see. A weird looking cat. Still awesome name. Did I see the Hunter of the Parenting Patreon post? I have not. Is it good? Because I have no idea. Huh.
When he drove the Silent Striders from their homeland for opposing him. As a result, Silent Striders tend to have a burning hatred for vampires,
probably Idris,
who every one of them would at least know to have been connected to this curse somehow.
Oh.
As you might have logically surmised, the tribe's aesthetic was ancient Egyptian, even as they were travelers in the old law, to the extent that many would actually adopt sort of Egyptian names. Here the cross-cultural syncretisms are direct and deliberate, and the tribe probably contributes a lot to the fact that Egypt is the cultural turntable of the Islamic world to this day. Some classic Silent Strider characters might be a zoologist traveling through the Amazon rainforest in search of ancient spirit lore, an Amazigh caravan guide that leads people across the enormous length of the Sahara Desert, or an airline pilot who has a habit of getting lost in some of the places they fly to, and it's becoming a bit of a disciplinary problem. The Silver Fang...
Wait, why would them getting... Oh, because they're looking around and finding things. That last one actually sounds really funny. It almost feels like a reference to Gilligan's Island for some reason, but that's a boat, not a plane. Maybe it was a reference to Lost. Falcon?
Fangs are natural-born leaders and rulers, kings and barons.
So they were born with a silver finger in their mouth instead of a spoon? Got it.
People of great social influence who feel a strong obligation to do right by their people, but will also expect their people's loyalty in turn. Among our...
Oh. So they actually want to do right. That does come up with the what do you think is right, and what do you do to the people who suddenly are disobeying you by not listening to you when they should have listened to you. That actually could be very interesting in both a protagonist or antagonist method. In fact, it could even be better if it's a protagonist or former protagonist being set up as an enemy because they made the wrong choice and they have to be stopped. Because they want to do right, but they're not actually working, which is a lot of standard complicated villain trope at this point, but it's common because it is good and it's well done when it's well done. Also, hey, Cosmic, what's up, man?
They are sort of aristocrats who foster new generations of leaders when they see potential in them, and often get to set the ceremonial agenda in any given social gathering. They see this not as a right they are born to, though it certainly is that as well, but focus on the noblesse oblige aspect of wanting to do a good job, inspiring those below them, and making the right decisions for their well-being. They're not
As opposed to what happened in reality, where noblesse oblige was the thing we told people so they wouldn't ask why we were taking everything they had.
immune to change and adaptation, and frankly, many are not so keen on the hierarchy aspect and more about the genuine leadership role. But it's hard to extricate themselves from their aristocratic heritage when it's so baked into the culture, up to the point where spirits recognize and honor old pacts you didn't even know about simply because you are a Silver Fang. Or worse, they might actually only discuss deals with a Silver Fang, even if that Silver Fang has no interest in being an authority figure because they feel like only the Garou nobility could possibly have a say in any of this. And
Okay, I was not expecting that to be the twist, that they're so actually good that they don't want to be the people in charge. But others that are more baked into the, this is what we did and we're going to stick to it, because they mentioned Fae and Fairy, only are, so literally forcing someone into a position of power, that is a very fascinating intro. I can imagine, maybe not so much a RPG, but like an actual game on a computer where the protagonist finds out, congratulations, you're a Silver Fang. The reason you get to learn this is because, congratulations, you're now negotiating who's going to own this portion of the Umbra and then the connecting portion of reality that you live in. It's you. We recognize you as in charge. You own nothing? Too bad. You're in charge. It seems like the fish out of water story that would be really fascinating, just almost like a, I'm going to say something that's probably going to piss people off, but that's probably normal. As a game built around building your own little mini empire in a modern setting. So think Civ, but World of Darkness inspired. Huh.
in times of the post-apocalypse, many Garou do not have that sort of faith in the Silver Fangs, and often resent them for this hard-coded power that is often assumed and unearned. They were the leaders of the Garou Nation, and the Garou Nation failed. It collapsed because it didn't manage to save Gaia, so clearly, having the Silver Fang sitting at the top rung of the social pyramid didn't work out so well. This is
Yep. But like he said, the problem is others might still recognize them as in charge, which has its own problems. If we're not in charge, but you say I'm in charge, and you're only going to talk to the person in charge, but the person in charge is not me. Oh, that would be awesome and so fucked up.
This is why especially many younger Silver Fangs try to be worthy of their position, which may lead to them being the sorts of people pleasers that the elders do not recognize as proper Silver Fangs at all. Their patron spirit is Falcon, a spirit of rulers and nobility, elegant and regal, always impressive, never overbearing. Well, maybe sometimes overbearing. Maybe, probably, actually it is overbearing all the time, but not in its own mind. It favors leading and inspiring, especially if it's by example. But it's also proud as hell and bans losing face and status in Garou society, which...
So they're banned from losing face, which they explicitly, as a default, do not have because they lost Gaia. So they're banned from doing the thing they started at. Oh, literally setting yourself up to fail.
Can be a problem sometimes because you do need to grovel a bit now and again to get the right things done. In the old lore, the Silver Fangs were very similar, except because the Garou blood ran along family lines, they were much more tied in with those family lines. They had noble lineages known as houses, all of which included several blue-blooded families. There is no more blood-related aristocracy, though if you feel like it, you can probably make it so that specifically with the Silver Fangs, the likelihood of blood relations being Garou is higher, or maybe they have like a ritual to facilitate this. Their aesthetic was...
Wait, what does he mean a ritual to facilitate this? Because the only ritual I know of is the really fucked up one where you become a Garou by taking pelts and then doing magic to become one, but you're kind of like fucked up if you do that. unless you get the pelts willingly, then you're less fucked up, but it's still not as good as being a Garu. Huh. And Cosmic just mentioned in the chat, been writing scripts all day. I'm very tired. Other than that, good. Oh, because he's been writing up his next lines. Yeah, he's been really busy lately. I need to check out his stuff again. And yeah, Spirits, Compulsion, Shenanigans. Yeah.
Well, aristocratic, obviously, with all the frills and all the whistles and the heraldry and everything. It tended to have more of a Russian vibe in many cases, but really you had influences of aristocracy from all over, which is actually very common with aristocrats from various countries because they live in their own rather cosmopolitan parallel society.
That's a nice way to say inbred. Yeah. Look up Habsburgs and see someone who has a jawline that makes mine look small and a head that does not.
Away from the rabble. The Silver Fangs even had incest, so it's the whole package, really. Some classics.
Yeah. It's good to see they're definitely blue-blooded because the genetic deterioration has changed so the wrong color is presented.
Silver Fang characters might be a local politician in Patagonia who got elected on a platform of helping the poor, and who is somehow actually delivering on that? A distant member of the Japanese royal family who is making headlines because they're calling for widespread systemic reform? Or a vigilante in Johannesburg who is lauded as a hero by the locals? The Stargazers.
Did they literally make Nelson Mandela a Garu? Sure. Okay. Yeah, that works.
The deeply spiritual mystics and clerics. Ascetics that have completely removed themselves from Garu politics and have no interest in participating in the war against the worm. As such, they too are one of the...
Whoa. Go back a second. They're not? Because that's the defining feature of everyone on either side of the good-bad divide here. It's you're either against the worm or you've been corrupted to like the worm. Embrace the worm. Don't ask where the worm enters you. Okay, this is different.
Interest in participating in the war against the worm.
I did hear that correctly,
As such, they too are one of the non-playable tribes in Werewolf 5. They seem to have accepted the reality of apocalypse and are now working in arcane ways to ensure that the world born after is different. They are...
Oh, that's the first I've heard of that concept mentioned at all in World of Darkness. The world born after. The only thing I've heard about Worlds Born After was moving from the initial old World of Darkness to Chronicles, which was, and then everyone died because Cain woke up and shit happened and now we're moving on. And then they kind of went back because that was a stupid plot line, it seems like. But they kept some things, but got rid of others, and yeah. But if they're actually explicitly doing magic, this is the magic faction? What exactly do they do?
Oppose the worm defiler, but often seem actively engaged in a process of seeing the worm rebirth itself back into a more balanced form.
Which would be purging the corruption and probably viewed as actively evil by the people you can play as, even if it might actually be the right choice. Oh. And Cosmic in the chat mentioned, they're unique among the Garu, but not necessarily among the Farah. There's a few changeling races which do other stuff than fighting the worm. Because Farah is the shape changers, but Garu are explicitly the were version, the werewolves, who are very much into the murder. Yeah, okay, that makes a little more sense.
View problems as systemic and seek to solve them by altering the system, and as such have no use for the crude tactics of the other Garu tribes. Of course, they are internally divided as well, and include sects that have outright heretical, seemingly worm-tainted worldviews. Because of their detached perspective, they seem to be less prone to issues of rage, and some have suggested that they are caught in a sort of collective Harano, much like the Get of Fenris is caught in Hauglosk. But unlike Garu caught in Harano, they do stuff. It's just weird stuff. That's exactly why the other tribes distrust them so much.
You can't just drop that line that they do weird stuff and move on, because I want to know what is the weird stuff. What exactly is that? What do they do that's weird for a bunch of warriors of Gaia who are fighting an endless battle that they've already lost? Maybe. Because technically Gaia can't be completely dead, considering mages use Gaia and the worm and the weaver to do magic-y shit.
There's no like kill on sight policy here. The stargazers are often even part of moots and cans, albeit usually temporarily, and following some sort of clandestine agenda that kind of but not really aligns with the interests of the other Garou. And you never know where exactly that divergence is, because the stargazers are not particularly keen on divulging the secret knowledge they have access to.
So in other words, the reason you can't play them is because they've been given cool information that the player character can't get because it counts as spoilers. Damn. On the other hand, maybe that indicates that the people writing at White Wolf are getting their act together because they're leading into having secrets again. Don't have to invest it yet, just have to think about it. And according to Alam, we need a fairer video because wereboars, the werecows, and the werebears would be the purifiers, the reformers, and the passive leaders looking to heal rather than destroy. And according to Cosmic, the weresnakes, Naga, for example, are basically guys, secret police and assassins taking out traitors and selective targets. The werespiders, Anasasi, are doing their own thing, mostly aligned to the Weaver. Wow, spiders going with the Weaver. We never would have saw that coming.
Their patron spirit is unknown.
How does that
Nobody
work?
knows. That's how far this goes. Really, nobody knows who it is.
Oh, so that's
which is
intentional.
honestly kind of suspect. It used to be Chimera, a spirit of enigmas and vague omens and portents, but it's not anymore. And it wasn't like a bad breakup either. Some suspect they have no patron spirit at all now,
Can
and
they do
this
that?
is one of the things they've done away with for the advent of their new world order. Or that maybe the new patron spirit is something dark and evil, or perhaps something altogether alien. I like to think, in my personal headcanon, that it's Sphinx, but it really just is objectively unknown.
So theoretically, if you wanted to have one of them as the enemy, a bunch of people who have were forms that change their bodies when you can make them look how you want, who have an unknown patron, go full on Cthulhu. Yeah. Not even joking. Go full on. We're going to help remake the planet in a better image. The image of our Lord and Savior, the unclean one from beyond the grips, who has sought the end of death itself through life eternal. So no one dies. There's no need for Gaia to be dead because everything comes back. No more death. New world. Would that be the case? No, probably not. But if you want to play around with a really off-the-wall, we're not expecting this, but you can play around with it, you just basically play SCP End of Death as the Garou making it happen. This is dumb. This is very dumb. I would laugh my ass off at it. But it is a nice plot hook option.
The old law, they were actually not that different in how they operated, except they were playable, and their totem was in fact Chimera. They had the role of isolated sages standing outside the political realm, somehow able to manage their beast, and foiling plans of the Garou nation as often as they supported them. They had this sort of Far Eastern guru aesthetic, very Buddhist in outlook, but ultimately surpassing that with its animist streak, and willing to adopt the guise of any clerical framework to translate their understanding of whatever deeper truth they were privy to.
Oh, so they explicitly used religious frameworks, anyone that would work. So these would be the religious leaders preaching, change of the world, things are going to get better, cleanse everyone living in this area over here. Okay. And according to Cosmic, Spirit of Cthulhu and World of Darkness, absolutely doable. Oh, well, shit. That actually is a thing that could happen.
Into different philosophies. Some classic Stargazer characters might be a hermit living on top of a Himalayan mountain where the Sherpas claim the Yeti can often be seen, a city planner in Trenton who is trying to convince people to get rid of the very concept of suburbs, or an outback guide who takes people on intense walkabouts that may or may not involve psychedelic experiences induced by snakebite.
He's probably very popular, with a very large subset of people who have more money than sense. Yeah.
As you've seen, Garou deal with a massive magical and spiritual component to their existence. They're both beings of the Umbra, specifically the Middle Umbra, like the dimensions of spirits, and the material world, but they're not fully at home in either. They practice magical rituals that allow them to do some pretty impressive shit, not just related to what you might expect, like healing, being more fierce in combat, purifying areas of pollution, making clothes part of your transformation. They also have rights like...
Wait, the clothes are actually part of the transformation? I thought they're just one of those things you hand wave away, but that's actually one of the things you can magically get good at. Wait, are you able to magically have guns on dog form? Would you be able to do stupid stuff if you get the magic with the clothes transformation and say, okay, I'm a regular person, but then I transform into a full-on dog form who has a freaking autocannon mounted to his back as part of my clothing? That's so incredibly stupid. I'm assuming someone has tried it in their own home campaign.
Being able to enter the spirit world at all, or hiding your home base, or creating a home base in the first place. That's a cairn, a sacred location, usually watched over by a spirit and maintained by a pack or several packs, at which point it's called a sept of werewolves. Cairns and the rites performed there are core to Garou culture, and they are not just found in pristine nature, but anywhere spirits are strong. So it could be an old castle ruin overgrown with lush
Strong
vegetation.
spirits.
It could also be a hookah bar with a long-standing tradition. Or it could be a can with an I instead of an E somewhere high up in the mountains. It could even be a well-kept
Why do I feel like he's making a reference to something? Because just someplace high up in the mountains. That feels like he's making a reference to something that people who know more about this setting would know, and I don't know it. Ah. And it looks like chat doesn't either at the moment. Damn.
city under a turnpike. They're usually built around some sort of node of power, and World of Darkness knowers will maybe ask themselves, hang on, is this a quintessence node or a glamour balefire? And the answer is yes. That's precisely what this is. So Garou not only compete with each other for control of cairns, but also mages and changelings.
Oh, so this is one of the conflict areas that would happen naturally. They're both trying to get power from the same source. But unlike mages who can do magic other places, it seems like wolf magic explicitly needs place.
If you want to learn more about the fair folk in World of Darkness, I have a video on Changeling the Dreaming. And when it comes to magic, in case you are knowledgeable about this as well, werewolves don't perform dynamic magic as mages do, but procedural magic like every other supernatural creature. And if you want to know what the difference between those is, I recommend my video on Mage the Ascension. But as
never actually got around to that one, or the Changeling one either. I might end up getting around to it, but there's just so many videos, I might not get to it anytime soon.
Those who know, procedural magic can actually be just as powerful as dynamic magic, and extremely varied. So no matter what you're trying to achieve, some theurge in the whole vast world knows how to do that. But they like to keep that sort of knowledge close to their vests, because magic isn't just something you do lightheartedly. It often involves spirits in some way, who need to be respected, and many rituals don't actually do magic, but are purely social. Standing on ceremony is a pretty big deal to the Garou. And
so literally the magic is ceremonial then in many cases. Oh, that would mean that those previous addendums about the silver fangs and how certain spirits only worked with them means that part of the magic might actually require them at this point because that's how it was formulated.
And while many Garou do not know how to perform any rituals, though they certainly participate in them,
know the situation.
Most of them do have gifts, which are magical abilities bestowed upon them by spirits. Gifts are potentially even more diverse than rituals, and can be used without knowledge of magic. But they're not free. You usually need to convince a spirit to give you that gift, so you'll have to...
In D&D terms, that'd essentially be warlock for the spirit. Okay.
To impress them and gain their trust. Some types of gifts may only be given to Garou of certain auspices or tribes. That's the deal that was made in the spirit world.
And that's why they had the patrons.
Any spirit who goes against that may find themselves encountering a bit of trouble, so they're not going to do it. There is a long list of gifts in the core rulebook, and even longer lists of gifts in old rulebooks that you can adapt, because there's really no end to them.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things I do love about most pen and paper games, that you could do physically. You're not limited to, hey, here's what the new edition says, because you can literally just go back and say, hey, I want to change this to your DM, and do it. It's why I played a 5e campaign with advanced D&D style mechanics brought into it. because you can. As long as the DM's okay with it, you can do stupid shit. As long as you're okay with the DM also bringing things in because they can. And yeah.
Same gift can be given by different spirits. So, for instance, if you want dazzling charisma, as in the presence discipline vampires have, you might get it from a peacock spirit, a rose spirit, a butterfly spirit, or a sunrise
So things
spirit.
known for
Skin
being
that's
beautiful.
tough as rock you might get from a turtle spirit, or, a rock spirit. A paralyzing gaze might be gained from a cobra spirit, but also maybe a car headlight spirit.
Which is probably important to understanding what happened at the end of Hunter the Parenting, because she had 2 different animals on her shoulders. So Matilda probably had 2 different spirits she was invoking magic from. Okay, one of them was probably to get into the Umbra itself. Which makes a lot more sense now that I know this, because this is directly relevant to Hunter the Parenting, because it is exactly the information I was missing to understand what I was looking at. Honestly, this is probably one of those things where if it wouldn't be spoilers, while having watched this in advance, would have made sense.
Because everything is spirits. Everything has a spirit. Even the bad stuff. Even the stuff that no longer exists. They go from simple entities with extremely rudimentary intelligence, like the spirit inhabiting a gas lamp, or the spirit of a particular dung pile, or the spirit of that particular gust of wind, to pretty much literal gods like Gaia or Luna or the Triad spirits. They're also fractal entities split into smaller component versions of themselves.
So it's closer to how, at least I believe, Kami is separated in more the Japanese understanding of it. I'm not entirely well versed on that, but I thought it was like there's a spirit for everything as the Kami. Like the god of this specific individual thing, the spirit of it. And there was a spirit for everything, but at various levels going up to God. Okay. Like there'd be the spirit of the mountain or the god of the mountain. That kind of makes more sense. Oh, and Cosmo mentioned the stepping the Umbra thing is stepping sideways. That's just a Gower thing. So long as its surface is... Oh, they can just do that. Which is why they had the puddle to jump in. Okay. Shintoism. That's the word, Cosmic. Thank you very much.
Different incarnations and different levels of incarnation. There's the spirit of this rock, and the spirit of this mountain, and the spirit of this mountain range, and the spirit of rock, the spirit of mountain, the spirit of mountain ranges, all the aspects of the same thing, but manifested hierarchically as separate beings. It's basically like how Jesus is the Son of God, but also God. Pretty much the exact same situation.
Yeah, that works.
Just massively scaled up. So if you piss off a duck spirit hard enough, Duck the Spirit with a capital D, the spirit of all ducks, will eventually take note of this, and all the...
Which is probably how they subdivide things in having the big 3 spirits of Worm, Weaver, and Gaia, because everything was probably splintered. Kind of like how you would set up a computer as this is my PC, this is the network PC, this is the... every PC on this Wi-Fi, this is the home folder, this is the subdivision of the home folder, this is the homework folder where I actually leave my tasks, and this is the taxes folder where I leave things my wife doesn't know about. That's a lie, she definitely does. It involves all the different Magic the Gathering cards I bought where I collect them, and they're way more than I should probably have mentioned. Yeah. Hey, you gotta hide the deep, dirty secret that you play Magic the Gathering somewhere. No one looks in the taxes folder.
The other individual duck spirits will as well. And then the ducks will be pissed at you. Every culture...
See, that's just a blood-faced lie. The ducks start pissed at you. They hate existence.
Culture interprets spirits differently and relates to them differently. There are many possible frameworks to see these entities through, and none of them are ultimately correct, because spirits and their hierarchies are inherently beyond mortal understanding. This leads to shamans from various cultures calling upon Fenrir, the Lupa Romana, Raiju, or Malsum. They're all particular aspects of wolf, which manifest differently from each other, but are still faces of the same entity. The spirits also include things that no longer exist, like extinct animals, even long extinct animals like dinosaurs and megalodons. And if you've been paying attention, things that never existed, like unicorns, griffins, griffins and dragons. Mages would understand these entities as bygones, who cannot exist in the material world because they'd be unexisted by paradox, since people no longer believe in them. But werewolves don't know any of that, and who knows if the mages are even correct? So to them, they're just...
I mean, to mages, though, if they're not correct, they enter a world where they become correct when they get powerful enough. So correct is a relative term. They're correct when they want to be until they're not, and then they're slapped down. Yeah. Everything I just said should be insane. And honestly, it probably is.
Just spirits. And spirits reside in the Umbra, a sort of parallel, not quite funhouse mirror world that roughly represents the real world through a spiritual lens, and can thus manifest in crazy and evocative ways. For instance, a bazaar would be teeming with spice scent clouds and the constant fluttering and flashing of wild energy of commerce, things changing hands, gold coins raining from the sky, ill-defined people with layered faces, spirits of barter. A coastline contaminated by an oil spill is being consumed by an amorphous black tentacle amoeba that grabs onto seagull spirits and corrupts them into twisted monstrosities. Toxic plumes manifest where the writhing mass touches the land and become poison elementals. An otherwise unassuming suburban house where a grisly murder happened will loom large, its walls stained with seeping blood, not dilapidated, but destroyed with large gashes, horrible wails coming muffled through black windows.
In other words, if you want to tell a story and go super dreamlike, the Umbra is the place to do it. Because everything you take from the craziness of the Umbra is a direct reflection of things you don't see anymore in reality, or that are there but maybe missed. For example, if you went to the bazaar like he said, and then suddenly there was a point of, oh God, what the fuck is going on right here? You know something fucked up is happening or happened, and it's a giant red flag to players. I love that. Sorry, this kind of reactive storytelling aspect where it's an exaggeration means that as the DM, if you wanted to go in there, you could give information to the players in a way that doesn't spoil what you're doing if you don't do it wrong. And you can actually just have some really crazy interactions like, hey, you walked into the Umbra. It looks pleasant, kind, and the grass is smiling at you, and their teeth are getting bigger. Do you know what that means? No, but maybe the DM will, and they'll find out when it bites you. Maybe literally. I'm probably being way kinder than what actually is in the Umbra. From what I've heard, it's even weirder than everything I just bullshitted up.
Giant rooms, cramped corridors that stretch on forever, shadows always in the corner of your vision. All places of certain emotional resonances. Everything that happens there colors the Umbra and the spirits that inhabit it. Umbral spaces are not concerned with one-to-one accuracy, they are representative, so they're pretty much always distorted to better represent the area in a metaphysical sense. They also don't correspond to the geography of the physical world very well, and the deeper you go, the less representative of the physical world the Umbra becomes.
What does it become
It's not
then?
entirely unlike the dreaming, which is made up of human ideas, but it is different in the sense that it represents reflections of reality, not reflections of imagination sometimes influenced by reality. It's a subtle distinction, but a crucial one. Sometimes those reflections are very old, representing long extinct habitats, sometimes inhabited by the aforementioned bygone spirits, some of which are immensely powerful, and even they can manifest in the material world through the power of possession. Now,
wait, possession? Oh, so that's the thing that happens in World of Darkness? I mean, I'm not really surprised, but that would be fun.
Possession is obviously not unique to bygones, just to make sure that this is clear. It is the only way that spirits can interact with the real world, though.
So you legitimately could have a dragon possessing someone. Yeah, you could have a dragon possessing someone. I didn't even think of that as an option. In other game systems, sure, why not? But yeah, you can randomly do that here too, because they're a bygone, but if they possess someone, dragon in real life. I wonder how that works out. And Alam, you mentioned wraiths also do that? Oh.
because, you know, they have no matter. They cannot manifest materially, but they do have a will and a sort of essence. So if they can inhabit matter, they can shape it after their essence and impose their will upon it. Anyone and anything can be a target of possession, but it's not exactly easy for spirits to do. The veil between worlds is thick. Generally speaking,
like how
spirits
thick?
will find it easier to inhabit things that are like them, and harder to inhabit things that aren't. So if you have a duck spirit, it will be easy for it to possess a duck, perhaps other poultry, but very difficult to possess, say, a smartphone, or a tree, or a pile of rocks. It would be relatively...
I don't know. What weighs more, this pile of rocks or a duck? If you get the reference, I butchered it, I'm aware.
easier for it to inhabit an aeroplane, or a duck toy made of plastic, a person that's completely fucking fearless even though they would easily get decked by pretty much everyone they meet. Because all those things share characteristics with duck. They are more like
fearless and willing
really
to
the
get
only
decked,
spirits you're going to see possessing stuff in the real world are pretty fucking powerful from the get-go. So they will mutate the things they possess, if only temporarily, to impart traits upon them that are of the spirit. And how that manifests will...
So they change the things to make it easier for them to be. Oh.
Of course always depend upon the synthesis of spirit and object. A raging bull spirit might manifest in a boxer, so he might grow a thin layer of black fur, or it might manifest in a forklift, in which case the forks might be bent elegantly to resemble horns, or it might manifest in an avalanche, in which case you might recognize a face in it that resembles a charging bull too much to be.
So you can have spirits manifest in things that aren't living, such as the forklift, or an event like an avalanche. Because if there's a spirit for everything, a spirit can possess everything. Oh. Huh. I wonder if there's a spirit who possesses events just to fuck someone over.
Coincidence.
Or
if it
reverse,
were to inhabit
possessing events
a
to make someone
bull,
luckier.
it would resemble the idealized raging bull more closely, up to and potentially including some glowing red eyes. These changes are only produced by powerful spirits, and the targets of possession revert to their original state once possession ends, which doesn't mean that they are somehow no longer, injured or dead from what happened during possession. Also, if the possession went on for extended periods of time, the mutations might be permanent.
Oh.
But more on that in a moment.
Like, how
Nature
crazy
and
did it
elemental
get?
spirits are rarely going to be acting different, trying to possess things they're not supposed to. When it does happen, then you know something is seriously wrong.
Like what?
And there might also even be some other type of fuckery afoot. There's a long list of even weirder spirits, but some of the most crucial in the life of a Garou are the triadic spirits, which serve various aspects of the triad. Wild spirits tend to be very abstract, inconsistent, and fleeting. They're spirits of change, growth, creation, naturally, whatever the fuck makes the useful mutation half of evolution work. They are rarely seen at all, and when they do manifest something, it's usually like making a dog in the park do something weird that an artist then sees and it inspires her.
It's probably wrong, but explicitly the dogs playing poker, I want to believe, is an artist just saw a bunch of dogs playing poker because a spirit made it happen. It's dumb, but that's my new headcanon.
Or a wild spirit possesses a couple having the ecstatic sex of their life, and 9 months later, mommy gives birth to healthy octuplets. When you see a tree that's just unreasonably huge compared to all the others around it, a wild spirit was probably involved. Weaver spirits are most comfortable with inanimate objects, especially technology. They like to inhabit buildings and computer systems.
Really?
Places of order and stability. So courthouses much more than crack dens. The most iconic type of Weaver spirit...
I don't know. I've never seen a crack den that is anything other than a crack den. They're incredibly stable at being and staying crack dens. There's someone out there who probably thinks I'm not joking.
Spirit is the pattern spider. So named because they weave the support structure for reality in the umbra. And the... Wait.
What? This is probably one of the crossover elements from both here for World of Darkness and Exalted, because I know Exalted had pattern spiders. Okay, sure. They kept that terminology around.
stable paths that connect. They don't always look like spiders, though they tend to look pretty spider-like, and they scuttle around, especially the urban areas of the Umbra, to make sure everything stays as it is, repairing damage wherever it occurs. But of course, the most important to the Garou are worm spirits, and they also come in a vast and terrible variety. The most frequently encountered and feared among them are so-called Banes.
Bane?
Spirits of evil and destruction, a whole category of beings all on their own, including gigantic fucking insects crawling around sites contaminated by nuclear energy.
Yeah, that would be terrifying. I would very much say that's terrifying. No, giant nuclear reactive insects. Sure, new fear.
Goo that breaks down and repurposes all things, and whispering mouths that live on 4chan to make people do mass shootings.
Isn't that just 4chan? Oh, I see. Yeah, that makes sense.
Banes actively seek to possess things, especially humans, but animals and machines will sometimes do. Like other spirits, they have an easier time inhabiting things that are like them. So a Bane of Rage would have to be very powerful to possess a Zen monk, but someone with anger issues is easily stoked. They
So in other words, standard Twitter user.
seek out people who are greedy, power-hungry, desperate, hateful, and any number of other negative qualities that the worm fosters in society in order to mutate them over time and turn them into femori that advance the worm's agenda by driving them to ever more extreme acts.
And this is why people in Hunter the Parenting and why Cosmic in the chat was talking about femori. Because that crazy fucked up thing in the new audio log was most likely a femori. Because he had that aspect of pollution, like it smelled horrible. Okay, and made them literally, or made Chapman literally sick when he encountered it. So it's probably that. And people did mention the lantern was also a Bane, so it was probably a spirit possessing a physical object being held by a spirit possessing a person. Spirits all the way down, man.
Much like no two spirits are identical, no two femori are either. An old lady might resent the loss of her own youthful beauty because she was, quite frankly, a cunt in terms of her personality. So when the good looks stopped being able to draw people in, she became lonely, and eventually became possessed by a Bane that made her even more hideous and resentful at all the beauty in the world, which is why she goes around the world seeking beautiful people to disfigure. Initially, she did this with blades and acid, but it's been a few years, and she's grown powerful, barely recognizable as a human being anymore, hunched and wrinkled, covered in warts like a hag.
So essentially they're just doing flat-out hags. Ah.
She needs to do is touch someone to turn them into a monstrous-looking shell of their former self. Every street she goes down, the colors on the buildings lose some of their sheen and begin to crumble.
Oh, I didn't even think of that. Like passive effects on reality around them. They're that powerful. I thought it was just like, you know, this is unpleasant for a person, but no, passively changing reality around them. That almost sounds like something Paradox would get involved in.
Businessman might be driven to have it all. He's in love with the analogy of businesses eating each other like bacteria to grow.
Why do I feel this is a reference to the Wolf of Wall Street, or just Wall Street in general?
More powerful. A glutton. He indulges in the finest wines, cheeses, meats, and cigars, and one night he is informed that a homeless man is squatting on one of his properties. Following an impulse he himself does not fully understand, he goes there and destroys the homeless man's shelter. And then he beats the crap out of him. He is a corpulent and powerful guy. The homeless man is scrawny and malnourished. And when he has finally beaten his victim to death,
he eats him,
cannot resist but take a bite, which rouses in him a hunger for forbidden flesh. Years have passed here as well, and he's now a big fat mountain of a man who can distend his jaw and consume his business rivals whole. In this, he absorbs their very essence, all their knowledge and personality.
Oh, so in other words, there's literally nothing gained. I know what I said and I stand by it.
And can pretend to be them, morphing himself into their shape. But now he is so powerful that he can just vomit them forth to do his bidding, and then slurp them back up again when the deed is done. Sometimes he even does
I hope this man never actually gets anyone from Alpha Bruce's crew to listen to him, because everything he just disturbed, not said, disturbed, because the existence of having these words in existence is disturbing, is something Bruf Alphabus would look at this and going like, yep, yeah, he would kind of like this. Let's do it.
This just for fun, because he knows they're still in there somewhere, in these shell facsimiles of themselves, terrified and in pain. A mad killer wants to murder a whole lot of people with curare poison, so he captured one of the frogs that make it. The frog is a particularly bellicose individual, so the poison is improperly handled.
I just realized what he's describing by eating people to get power is essentially just the diablerization, or diablery? Vampires eating vampires. It's the same concept. You know, there's always the reference that it's a curse. I wonder if it actually was that vampires are possessed by something. And that's the essential, what the initial curse on Cain was. Possession by a spirit.
Handled by this amateur killer,
probably didn't think
dies.
that much.
Panicked. Outside of its natural environment, the frog finds within itself the instinct to crawl into the warm and wet hole that is the dead killer's open mouth, and pushes itself deep into his head. The Bane, having to improvise a little bit now that its original target is dead, does, and the poison frog melts into the corpse, reanimating it with its small spine.
1 second. Sorry about that. Had to cough. Allergies.
Of life into a semi-alive state. Now there is a killer afoot in Sao Paulo with bulging black eyes and strange discolorations of the skin, jumping to impossible places, squeezing through security measures to paralyze people with a touch, not to kill them outright, because the frog killer needs them to be alive when he tortures and dismembers them in the most horrific ways. Oh, and did I actually mention that spirits, including Banes, can possess supernatural creatures like vampires and mages?
Mages and vampires can be possessed. The mage kind of makes sense because if you deal with bullshit happens to you. Vampires, I thought, would not be, because usually they're fucked up enough to get around that.
Granted, it's not easy for them to do this, given that vampires are naturally resistant to being changed, and mages are pretty much defined by their immense willpower. But that only means that the Banes who can possess someone like that are already much more powerful from the get-go. Yeah, from Airier and the Banes that...
So what you basically need to know is, if you see a vampire or a mage who is possessed, it's probably too late and you're fucked, because they're so powerful that they could do it in the first place. That sounds like it could be a problem.
Create them can be horrifying. And Garou spend a significant amount of their time hunting them down to curtail the influence of the worm. What's cool about them is that though there exists a lot of templates you can draw inspiration from, they are ultimately idiosyncratic monsters, which I absolutely love. Because instead of just being cannon fodder, they come with a unique and interesting story every time. And yes, though Werewolf the Apocalypse is certainly a game about fighting and killing bad shit, it's more foundationally, like all World of Darkness, a game about telling those kinds of stories. It's about politics and our relationship with meaningful change. It's about...
I do like how he's pointing out the highlight of Werewolf is this is politics and meaningful change versus trying to make forced change immediately that it eventually backfires in a setting where the big, spicy, juicy, sweet, and utterly gluttonous part of it is jumping into the violence and the fun, because you're a werewolf. You could do some crazy fighting shit. But it's in a setting where ultimately that isn't what's going to actually matter. So you kind of lose by going into what feels the best. It's an interesting dichotomy. And while on the tabletop, it can probably fall apart because you just have Rule of Cool and it's fun. Unless the DM is really good at pulling it together. It would make for an interesting concept to a video game where there are hard-coded rules showing the social interactions more. And maybe giving you options of, like, essentially if someone got... If they got Larian Studios to make a Werewolf the Apocalypse game where you got to choose how to play it, and you can either go full-on rage mode and just see what happens when you bring the hammer to everything and see where that breaks, or if you try and take other methods, see what shakes out. I need to play more Baldur's Gate 3. Seriously, this is, how is it just, really good role-playing formats, man. That's all it is right now, and it's freaking awesome.
About the issues that arise with your old life when you suddenly find you are a fucking werewolf. Even more so than it is with vampire, where you usually are completely cut off from the people in your old life. And I think the variety of ways you can manifest the themes of that kind of story through spirits and the Umbra has enormous potential. So quite frankly, I hope this video has made you as inspired to try out Werewolf as I was making it, whatever edition you may prefer. There's a huge amount of Werewolf deep lore out there.
There's
None
more?
of it's technically official anymore, I suppose. But
yeah, but it's kind of like all the extra stuff in D&D. It's not official now, which means you could use it. And if they want to claim it, they have to claim that it's still accurate.
it does exist, and there's nothing stopping you from implementing it to your liking. So go out there and go nuts. Thank you very much for watching this video. Like, comment, subscribe, and share it to your relevant communities. Consider supporting me on Patreon, buying some of my merchandise or my short story collection. You can find both of them here. Merchandise even has new items. By the way, a reason I know...
Wait, the mug with his face on it that looks like merchandise for himself is merchandise? I never would have guessed.
No longer say, but do not spam them to like the regular communities bit, is that I had a conversation with someone and they were like, oh, I didn't, I wanted to post it somewhere, but then I didn't do it because I was afraid someone else would do it at the same time, no matter how unlikely that was. And then we'd be spamming, so I didn't do it. And that's kind of not the point that I'm trying to make. Also, I don't know why you expected this video to be an April Fool's joke. I am known to be someone who says that only a fool does an April Fool's joke on April Fools. And in that spirit,
what are you going to do on April 2nd?
See you around, cunts.
Oh, God. Yeah, because he's British. Of course he'd end like that. Seriously, man. I know a lot of people are coming here for the lore, and honestly, I'm here for the lore myself. I like that. But I seem the more I get into Burgerkrieg stuff, the more I'm looking at it as, okay, this is a great stepping off point for your own campaign, your own idea of a game, your own setup, your own plot hook. It's just ideas for how to implement the stuff that exists in fun ways that you know you can fuck around with. And I love it. I'm the asshole who likes to screw around and find out. Even if I know it's going to go bad, I will still do it. Also, I'm just ignoring the chat talking about ghoul mages and how horrible that would go and how it would break things, but also sometimes they wouldn't. I love seeing the options. I love seeing the thought process that is existing in World of Darkness when they get into the nitty-gritty. As much as other parts of this also show that sometimes that thought process is completely ignored. Yeah, that is a thing. It's the good and the bad. The good points are when they put thought into it. The bad points are when the guy in charge is like, we're not touching that, fuck all. Because that was a thing. I love this. I love what he's doing. And if you haven't already, links below. Hit up Burgerkrieg. He's awesome. This was an amazing video, and I would love to check out more of his stuff. But just go hit him up. He also put up a video recently talking about how he's trying to push Patreon more because with the state of the world, he kind of needs money. And this is the first time in his life where he hasn't been living paycheck to paycheck, entirely dependent on that. So YouTube for him doing this stuff is literally probably saving his life. So if you can help him out, share his videos, go watch them, watch the ads, man. It does help a lot. And thanks for everyone who did actually help out this guy. He's pretty awesome. I love the stuff he makes. And on my end, I'm going to move on to the next video. But for right now, thanks for watching. Again, links. Hit it up. I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.